The alarm bells rang through the massive halls of the Galactic Council building. Ambassador Zethkara ran as fast as his 4 legs could carry him. His blue skin had turned pale with fear. Something terrible had happened, and he was the one who had to tell everyone. The great meeting hall filled with creatures from across the galaxy. There were the tall, thin Kalari with their silver eyes. The rock-like granite people sat in their heavy chairs. Flying creatures from the cloud worlds hovered near the ceiling. Everyone was talking at once, their voices mixing into a loud buzz of worry. Zethkara stepped up to the speaking platform. His voice shook as he began to talk. "My friends, I bring news that will shock you all. The humans are gone. All of them." The hall went completely quiet. Someone dropped something and the sound echoed loudly in the silence. "What do you mean gone?" asked Chairman Velox, the leader of the council. His green tentacles moved nervously. "Every human colony is empty," Zethkara said. "Every space station they built, every mining base, every ship. We have checked 847 human worlds. There is no one there." Dr. Zentai from the Science Guild stood up. Her insect-like head tilted to one side. "That is not possible. Humans do not just disappear. There are billions of them." "I thought the same thing," Zethkara replied. "So I went to see for myself. I visited Terra Nova, their capital world. The cities are still there, the lights are still on, the machines are still working, but there are no humans anywhere." The creatures in the hall began talking loudly again. Fear filled the air like smoke. Jake Morrison had been the last human anyone saw. 3 days ago, he was at New Geneva Station buying supplies for his ship. The Kalari workers remembered him well. He was always friendly and liked to joke around. He bought food, fuel, and new tools for his ship. Then he left on the Blue Dawn, just like he had done hundreds of times before. But Jake never made it to his next stop. His ship never arrived at Mining Station 7. The humans there had been waiting for him to bring supplies. They sent messages, asking where he was, but got no answer. Then they discovered something scary. The humans at Mining Station 7 were gone too. Their beds were still warm. Their coffee was still hot. But the people had vanished. Dr. Lisa Chang was a scientist who studied different alien species. She had been working near the human worlds when the disappearance happened. Her research ship was orbiting Terra Nova when she noticed something strange on her instruments. "The quantum readings are all wrong," she told her team. Her voice was filled with confusion. "It looks like the humans just stopped existing. Not like they died or moved away. Like they were never there at all." Lisa had always liked working with humans. They were curious about everything and asked good questions. Human scientist Amy Parker had been her best friend. They had worked together to cure the Red Death plague that had killed millions of aliens across the outer worlds. Now, Amy was gone and Lisa felt lost and afraid. The more the council investigated, the more worried they became. Humans had been doing important jobs all across the galaxy. They were the ones who solved fights between different alien species. When the Crystal People and the Hive Minds could not agree about territory, human diplomat Robert Kim had found a way to make peace. He was smart and fair, and everyone trusted him. Humans also fixed things that other species could not understand. The ancient gate network that let ships travel faster than light was very old and complicated. Only human engineers knew how to keep it working properly. Chief Engineer Paul Davis had trained hundreds of humans to maintain the gates. Without them, the galaxy's transportation system might break down. Captain Susan Lewis had been in charge of protecting the galaxy from outside threats. She commanded the early warning systems that watched for dangerous enemies. Her human crews were brave and smart. They had kept everyone safe for 20 years. Now the defense network was running on automatic systems, and everyone knew that would not last long. Trade was also becoming a problem. Humans had been the galaxy's best negotiators and bankers. They understood how different species thought and felt. This made them perfect for handling business deals between aliens who did not trust each other. The Mineral Guild and the Energy Consortium had been trading peacefully for centuries because human mediators kept their deals fair. Now their representatives were arguing again. and no one knew how to stop it. On New Colorado, one of the biggest human colonies, something strange was happening. The machines that kept the planet's air breathable were starting to shut down. The computers said they were following emergency protocols, but no one understood why. It was as if the humans had programmed their systems to turn off if something specific happened. The same thing was happening on other human worlds. Weather control systems were powering down. City networks were switching to minimal operation mode. It looked like the humans had planned for this disappearance, but that seemed impossible. Dr. Rachel Moore studied communication systems across the galaxy. She discovered that humans had not just been translating words between different species. They had been translating thoughts and feelings, too. Each alien species thought in very different ways. The rock people thought slowly and carefully. The cloud flyers thought in quick bursts of emotion. The hive minds shared thoughts with each other. Humans somehow understood all these different ways of thinking. They could help species communicate even when their minds worked in completely different ways. Without humans to bridge these gaps, misunderstandings were starting everywhere. Simple business deals were failing. Friendly conversations were turning into arguments. We never realized how much we needed them, Chairman Velox said to his advisors. Humans were not just our allies. They were the glue that held our civilization together. As the council meeting continued, more bad news kept arriving. The outer defense stations had detected strange readings from deep space. Something big was moving in the darkness between galaxies. Something that bent space around it like a giant lens. The readings were similar to old warnings found in ancient archives, warnings that only humans had taken seriously. The galaxy suddenly felt very large and very empty. For the first time in centuries, the alien species realized they were not just missing their human friends. They were missing their protectors, their problem solvers, their bridge to understanding each other. Night fell on the council building, but the lights stayed on. The emergency session would continue. They had to find the humans, or find a way, to survive without them. The alternative was too frightening to consider. 3 weeks had passed since the humans vanished, and the galaxy was falling apart. Chairman Velox sat in his office looking at reports that made his tentacles shake with fear. Every day brought new disasters, and there seemed to be no way to stop them. The first major crisis hit the Nexus Gate system. These ancient machines allowed ships to travel across the galaxy in minutes instead of years. They were older than most civilizations and incredibly complex. The technology was so advanced that most species could barely understand how they worked. Only humans had been able to truly master the gates. Engineers like Paul Davis had spent their whole lives learning the systems. Paul could look at a gate's energy patterns and know exactly what was wrong, just by feeling. Other species needed computers and weeks of testing to find simple problems. Now the gates were breaking down everywhere. The main gate connecting the industrial worlds to the farm worlds had completely failed. This gate carried food to billions of hungry people across 12 star systems. Without it, the industrial worlds would starve within months. Captain Grix of the Kalari Transport Guild stood in the broken gate control room. Sparks flew from damaged panels and warning lights flashed red. His silver eyes reflected his desperation. "We have tried everything," he told the emergency repair team. "Our best engineers, our most advanced computers. Nothing works. The gate's quantum matrix is corrupted in ways we do not understand." The repair team was made up of the smartest aliens from 5 different species. They had been working for 2 weeks straight. Their tools and scanners covered every surface of the control room. But every time they thought they fixed something, 2 more problems appeared. "Paul Davis once told me that fixing gates was like conducting music," said Dr. Kethmar, the lead engineer. "You had to feel the rhythm of the quantum harmonics." I thought he was just being poetic. Now I understand he was being literal. Military problems started next. The early warning system that protected the galaxy's borders began failing. Captain Susan Lewis had designed this network 20 years ago. It used hundreds of sensor stations positioned around dangerous areas of space. These stations watched for enemy fleets, space pirates, and other threats. The system was incredibly sophisticated. It did not just detect ships, it analyzed their behavior patterns and predicted what they might do. This required understanding psychology, tactics, and technology all at the same time. Human operators had been perfect for this job because they could think like their enemies. Admiral Trancos of the Defense Fleet watched his tactical displays with growing horror. Red warning lights were appearing all along the border, not because enemies were attacking, but because the warning system itself was breaking down. Sensor Station 12 just went offline, reported Lieutenant Zendai. That is the 5th station, this week. Can we repair them? Admiral Trancos asked. We can fix the hardware, Zendai replied. But the analysis software was written by humans. It uses human intuition patterns that we cannot replicate. Without it, the sensors just collect raw data. They cannot tell us what the data means. The economic collapse began slowly, then accelerated like an avalanche. Humans had been the galaxy's financial experts because they understood alien psychology better than the aliens understood themselves. They knew that the crystal people made decisions based on mathematical beauty. The cloud flyers chose investments that felt emotionally satisfying. The rock people preferred slow, steady growth over quick profits. Human bankers like Jennifer Hayes had built a financial system that worked for everyone. They created investment plans that satisfied each species' psychological needs while still being profitable. The system was elegant and stable. Now that system was crashing. Without human oversight, the different species' investment strategies were conflicting with each other. The Mineral Guild wanted to buy mining rights that the Energy Laws and Consortium was trying to sell, but they could not agree on a price because they were thinking about value in completely different ways. Dr. Beth Coleman had been the galaxy's expert on interspecies economics. Her research showed that successful galactic trade required more than just fair prices. It required understanding what each species valued and why. This knowledge could not be programmed into computers because it was based on empathy and intuition. The humans did not just translate our languages, explained Dr. Vexitari, an economic analyst. They translated our dreams, our fears, our hopes. They understood what we wanted before we knew it ourselves. Communication networks were failing. Across the galaxy, different species were having trouble talking to each other, even when they spoke the same language. The problem was not with words, but with understanding. When the hive mind sent a trade proposal to the individual worlds, they wrote it the way hive creatures think. The proposal assumed that everyone would automatically want what was best for the group. But individual worlds' creatures made decisions based on personal benefit. The proposal seemed selfish and threatening to them. Human diplomats like Robert Kim had always rewritten such messages. They would take a hive mind proposal and translate it into individual world thinking. Then they would take the individual world response and translate it back into hive mind concepts. This was not just changing words, it was changing entire ways of thinking. We are speaking past each other, said Ambassador Yelmara of the Peace Coalition. Every conversation becomes an argument because we do not understand how other species think. On the abandoned human worlds, the automated systems continued their mysterious shutdown procedures. Climate control systems that had maintained perfect weather for centuries were powering down. City management networks were switching to emergency modes. Orbital defense platforms were retracting into storage positions. Dr. Rachel Moore studied these shutdowns from her research ship. She had been analyzing human technology for years but had never seen anything like this. It is as if they programmed their systems for this exact situation, she told her research team. Every shutdown follows a specific pattern. The systems are not just turning off randomly. They are following a carefully designed plan. But how could they plan for their own disappearance? Asked her assistant, a young Kalari named Jintar. That is what frightens me, Rachel replied. This suggests that the humans knew this would happen. They prepared for it. The most disturbing discovery came from deep space monitoring stations. Long-range sensors had detected unusual gravitational waves coming from the space between galaxies. The waves had a pattern that matched warnings found in the oldest galactic archives. These archives spoke of ancient dangers that threatened entire civilizations. Most species had dismissed these warnings as myths or legends. But humans had taken them seriously. Human scientists had spent decades studying these old texts and preparing for theoretical threats. The humans were not just our friends and partners, Chairman Velox told his emergency council. They were our guardians. They were watching for dangers that we did not even know existed. Trade routes that had been stable for centuries were now dangerous. Without human peacekeepers to mediate disputes, old grudges between species were resurging. The territorial wars that humans had helped end 30 years ago were threatening to restart. Space pirates were becoming bolder. They knew that the defense networks were failing and that there were no human rapid response teams to stop them. Merchant ships were being attacked in areas that had been safe for generations. We built our civilization on a foundation of human expertise, said Dr. Kethmar, during one of the emergency meetings. Now that foundation is crumbling and we do not know how to repair it. As the fourth week without humans began, panic was spreading across the galaxy. Some species were hoarding resources. Others were building defense fleets. A few were even talking about returning to their home worlds and cutting off contact with other species entirely. The great galactic civilization that had taken thousands of years to build was unraveling in just 1 month. Without humans to hold it together, the different species were remembering why they had feared and distrusted each other in the first place. Chairman Velox looked out at the stars from his office window. Somewhere out there, in the vast darkness of space, the answers waited. But time was running out, and the galaxy was running out of hope. The answer came from the deepest vaults of the Eternal Library, a massive structure that floated in space at the center of the galaxy. The library had existed for millions of years, tended by the Keepers, ancient beings who remembered civilizations that had turned to dust before the current species had even evolved. Keeper Thanemore was the oldest of them all. His crystalline body had witnessed the rise and fall of countless galactic empires. He rarely spoke to the younger species, considering them children who would be gone in the blink of his eternal eye. But today, he had called for an emergency. Meeting Chairman Velox and the Council's most senior members made the journey to the library. They found Thanemore in the archive of lost civilizations, standing before a wall covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. "You seek answers about the human departure," Thanemore said, his voice sounding like wind through crystal caves. "The answers are here, written in the blood of civilizations you have never heard of." The Keeper gestured to the symbols on the wall. "These are records of the Silence Bringers. They have come before and they will come again." "Silence Bringers?" asked Chairman Velox. "What are they?" Thanemore's ancient eyes glowed with inner light. "They are not invaders in any sense you would understand. They do not conquer or destroy. They erase. When galactic civilization becomes too perfect, too stable, too comfortable, the Silence Bringers come to reset the cosmic cycle." The symbols on the wall began to glow, showing images that made the council members feel sick with fear. They saw great civilizations that had achieved perfect peace, perfect technology, perfect harmony, and then they saw those civilizations simply disappearing, as if they had never existed at all. "It happened to the Crystal Builders 3 million years ago," Thanemore continued. "They had created a society where everyone was happy, where there was no conflict, no struggle, no growth. The universe decided they had become stagnant. The Silence Bringers came, and in one day the Crystal Builders were gone. The same thing happened to the Mind Weavers, and the Star Shapers, and dozens of other species. Each time, the galaxy reached a point where it stopped growing, stopped changing, stopped struggling. Each time the Silence Bringers came to clean the slate and start over." Dr. Yextara from the Science Guild studied the ancient records with her instruments. "These readings show quantum distortions in space-time itself, as if reality was being rewritten." "That is exactly what happens," Thanemore replied. "The Silence Bringers do not kill. They make it so you never existed in the first place. Your worlds, your history, your very atoms are edited out of reality." Captain Gencol of the Deep Space Survey had been monitoring the strange signals from between galaxies. His ship, the Far Seeker, had detected gravitational anomalies that defied explanation. "Something massive is approaching from dark space," he reported. "Our instruments cannot measure it properly because it bends space-time around itself like a lens. Based on its trajectory and speed, it will reach the galaxy's outer rim in approximately 6 months. Engineer Danny Webb had been studying the quantum signatures left behind in human space. His findings were disturbing. The areas where human colonies used to be show unusual readings. Reality seems thinner there, as if something had taken a bite out of the fabric of space-time itself. The humans knew this was coming, Thanemore said. Of all the species in this galaxy, only they understood the ancient warnings. Only they prepared. The Keeper led them deeper into the library, to a section that had been sealed for thousands of years. The walls here showed images of creatures that looked almost familiar. Bipedal, with 4 limbs, similar in size to humans, but somehow different. The Guardians? Thanemore explained. In each galactic cycle, the universe selects one species to serve as its champions against the Silence Bringers. These chosen ones are given certain gifts: adaptability, determination, the ability to think in ways that break patterns and create chaos where there is too much order. You mean the humans are these guardians? Chairman Velox asked. Were, Thanemore corrected. They were your guardians, but to fulfill their purpose, they had to transcend their current form. They had to become something capable of existing in the spaces where the Silence Bringers dwell. Intelligence Officer Kate Sullivan had been tracking unusual deep space signals for months before the human departure. Her classified reports, now released in desperation, showed a pattern of increasing activity from the void between galaxies. The signals started exactly 3 years ago, she reported to the Emergency Council. They matched quantum frequencies that human scientists had been researching. It was as if something was calling to them, and they were answering. Dr. Alan Brooks had been one of the galaxy's experts on human psychology. His research, stored in the Council archives, revealed disturbing patterns. Humans were different from other species in fundamental ways. Most species fear death, Brooks had written. Humans fear meaninglessness. Other species seek comfort and security. Humans seek purpose and challenge. Other species want to belong to something greater than themselves. Humans want to become something greater than themselves. This psychological profile makes them uniquely suited to face existential threats, Brooks continued. They are the only species I have studied that would willingly sacrifice everything, including their own existence, to preserve an abstract concept like the greater good. The ancient records showed that previous guardian species had all shared similar traits. The Star Warriors had been beings of pure aggression who fought the Silence Bringers in dimensions beyond normal space. The Dreamwalkers had been telepathic creatures who could enter the spaces between thoughts where the Silence Bringers originated. Each guardian species found their own way to transcend, Thanemore explained. The humans found theirs. Dr. Carol Hayes had been studying quantum mechanics at the edge of human space when she detected something impossible. Her research station had recorded energy patterns that suggested matter was being converted into pure information and then transmitted somewhere outside normal spacetime. The quantum signatures match theoretical calculations for consciousness transfer, she had reported, as if someone was uploading minds into a higher dimensional matrix. The pieces of the puzzle were coming together, but the picture they formed was terrifying. The Silence Bringers were not evil. They were a natural force like entropy or gravity. When galactic civilization reached perfect order, they would arrive to prevent the universe from stagnating in its own perfection. But why now? Asked Chairman Velox. Our civilization is not perfect. We still have conflicts, problems, struggles. Thanemore's crystal form flickered with ancient sadness. Your civilization was becoming too comfortable. The major conflicts had been resolved. The big problems had been solved. Species were learning to cooperate too well. The galaxy was moving toward a state of perfect peace and stability. That sounds like a good thing, protested Dr. Yextara. For you, perhaps, Thanemore replied, but the universe requires growth, change, conflict. Without these forces, reality itself begins to calcify. The Silence Bringers come to break the pattern before it becomes permanent. The ancient Keeper showed them one final record, this one more recent than the others. It showed human scientists, working in secret laboratories, building devices that seemed to blend science and magic. The humans in the images flickered between solid matter and energy. as if they were learning to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Your human friends discovered a third option, Thanemore said. Instead of allowing the galaxy to be reset, or to stagnate in perfection, they chose to become eternal agents of change. They transformed themselves into beings capable of preventing stagnation while preserving civilization. Where are they now? Chairman Velox asked. Thanemore pointed toward the wall, which had become transparent to show the star-filled void beyond. They are out there, in the spaces between realities, preparing for the arrival of the Silence Bringers. They have become what they needed to become to save you all. As the council members absorbed this information, long-range sensors across the galaxy began detecting something new. Ships were appearing at the edges of human space, ships that registered on instruments but could barely be seen by the naked eye. They flickered in and out of visible reality, as if they existed only partially in normal space. The humans had not abandoned the galaxy. They had evolved beyond it, becoming something new and strange and wonderful. But the question remained, would their transformation be enough to stop the Silence Bringers when they arrived? Time was running out, and the galaxy's fate hung in the balance between order and chaos, between existence and void, between the species they had been and the guardians they had become. The message arrived without warning at every major communication station across the galaxy. It bypassed all security systems, appeared on screens that were turned off, and spoke through speakers that were disconnected. The transmission carried a quantum signature that every alien recognized. It was human. Citizens of the galaxy, the voice said, calm and familiar. It belonged to Commander John Riley, the human fleet commander who had vanished with the entire Terran Defense Force 3 weeks ago. We have not abandoned you. We have gone ahead to face what is coming. Chairman Velox was in his office when the message began, his communication system activated by itself, displaying an image that made his tentacles tremble. Commander Riley stood in what looked like the bridge of a starship, but everything was wrong. The walls seemed to be made of flowing energy instead of metal. Other humans moved in the background, but their forms flickered between solid matter and pure light. We know you have many questions, Riley continued. We know you are frightened and confused. We are going to answer those questions now, because you deserve to understand what is happening. The transmission expanded, showing views from across human space that no alien had ever seen before. There were fleets of ships that existed half in normal space and half in dimensions that hurt to look at directly. Human crews worked at control panels that seemed to respond to thought rather than touch. Captain Steve Morgan appeared next, speaking from the bridge of his ship, the Defiant Dawn. The coordinate display behind him showed impossible numbers, positions that existed between galaxies in the void where nothing should be able to survive. We detected the approach of the Silence Bringers 3 years ago, Morgan explained. Our deep space sensors picked up gravitational waves that matched patterns in the ancient archives. We knew they were coming, and we knew what that meant for all of us. The image changed to show human scientists working in secret laboratories. Dr. Jennifer Kim was there, along with Dr. Tony Russell and hundreds of other human researchers. They were building machines that seemed to blend advanced technology with forces that no alien science could explain. We spent 3 years preparing, Dr. Kim said, her form shifting between solid matter and flowing energy as she spoke. We studied every record of the Silence Bringers. We learned about the previous Guardian species and how they had fought this threat. We discovered that the only way to stop the Silence Bringers was to become something they could not erase. The transmission showed the transformation process. Humans entering chambers filled with swirling energy, their physical forms dissolving and reforming into something new. They were still human in appearance, but they existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The process required us to abandon our physical ties to normal space-time, explained Dr. Amy Parker, the scientist who had been Dr. Lisa Chang's best friend. We had to become beings capable of existing in the spaces between realities, where the Silence Bringers come from. Lisa Chang watched from her research ship, tears flowing down her alien features. Her friend was still alive, but she was no longer the Amy she had known. This new Amy existed partially outside normal reality, connected to forces that regular matter could not touch. We tried to find another way, Amy continued, as if she could sense Lisa's thoughts across the light years. We explored every option, every alternative. But the mathematics were clear. To fight beings that exist outside reality, we had to join them in that existence. Commander Riley returned to the screen, and the view behind him showed something that made every alien watching gasp in fear and wonder. There, in the darkness between galaxies, vast shapes moved through space that was not space. The Silence Bringers were enormous beyond comprehension, creatures of living void that consumed existence itself. They are not evil, Riley explained. They are a natural force of the universe like gravity or time. When galactic civilizations become too ordered, too perfect, too stable, the Silence Bringers come to reset the cosmic cycle. They prevent the universe from dying of its own perfection. The transmission showed the approaching entities more clearly. They were not ships or creatures in any normal sense. They were holes in reality itself, spaces where existence simply stopped. Everything they touched did not explode or burn. It simply ceased to be, as if it had never existed at all. Previous civilizations tried to fight them with weapons, said Captain Lisa Taylor, her consciousness spanning multiple dimensions while still maintaining human form. But you cannot shoot something that exists in the gaps between atoms. You cannot destroy something that is made of unbeing. Other civilizations tried to hide, added Lieutenant Ben Torres. They sealed themselves away in pocket dimensions or distant galaxies. But the Silence Bringers always found them. You cannot hide from something that exists everywhere existence is not. The view changed again, showing human fleets engaging the Silence Bringers in battles that took place across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The humans had become something new, beings of will and determination that could impose their existence upon the void itself. We learned that the only way to stop them was to give them what they wanted, while denying them what they needed, explained Admiral Gary Mitchell. They come to prevent stagnation, so we became eternal agents of change. We became the chaos that keeps the universe growing. The aliens watching the transmission began to understand. The humans had not just evolved to fight the Silence Bringers, they had evolved to replace them. Instead of allowing the galaxy to be periodically reset, the humans would serve as permanent guardians against stagnation. Dr. Carol Hayes appeared, next, speaking from a research station that existed partially outside normal spacetime. We discovered something in the quantum archives that changed everything. Humanity was not a random evolution. We were engineered by the universe itself as a contingency plan. The transmission showed genetic analysis that proved humans had been guided in their development, their aggression, their adaptability, their unique psychology. All of it had been shaped by cosmic forces preparing for this moment. Every species that achieves spaceflight develops certain traits, Hayes continued. Cooperation, logic, efficiency. But humans developed something else. The willingness to sacrifice everything for abstract principles. The ability to choose meaning over survival. This made us perfect candidates to become cosmic guardians, said engineer Danny Webb. We are the only species that would willingly give up our physical existence to serve a greater purpose. The battle between humanity and the Silence Bringers was shown in flashes and glimpses. It took place in dimensions that three-dimensional minds could barely comprehend. Human consciousness, transformed into something beyond matter and energy, fought entities of pure negation across the spaces between thoughts. The war lasted subjective millennia, while only days passed in normal time, reported Commander Tony Brooks. We fought not with weapons but with will, not with force but with determination. We argued our case to the universe itself. And we won, said Admiral Susan Lewis, her transformed consciousness radiating triumph. Not by destroying the Silence Bringers, but by convincing them. We proved that a galaxy protected by eternal human guardians would never become stagnant. The transmission showed the aftermath of the battle. The Silence Bringers were withdrawing, returning to the void between galaxies. But they were not gone. They were waiting, watching, ready to return if the galaxy ever achieved the kind of static perfection that threatened cosmic growth. "We are returning to you," said Commander Riley, "but we are not the same humans who left. We exist in multiple dimensions now. We can appear in your reality, but we also exist in spaces you cannot see." The image changed to show human colonies beginning to reappear on the abandoned worlds. But these were not the same colonies that had vanished. The humans walking the streets of New Terra looked normal, but instruments showed they existed in several dimensions simultaneously. "We will resume our old roles," Riley continued. "We will be your mediators, your problem solvers, your friends. But now we have an additional purpose. We are the guardians who ensure that this galaxy never becomes too perfect, too ordered, too stable. We are the chaos that keeps the cosmos alive," added Dr. Parker, "the uncertainty that prevents the universe from falling asleep in its own perfection." As the transmission began to fade, one final message appeared. It came from Captain Robert Nash, speaking for all transformed humanity. "The treaty we offer is simple. We will protect this galaxy from stagnation and reset. In return, you must accept that perfect order is not the goal. Growth, change, and constructive conflict are necessary for cosmic health. We are no longer just humans," Nash concluded. Our humanity evolved, humanity transcended, humanity eternal. We are your guardians now, watching from the spaces between stars to ensure that existence continues to exist." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. The humans had returned, but they had become something wonderful and terrible and necessary. They were no longer just another species among many. They were the custodians of cosmic balance itself. The first sign of humanity's return came at dawn on New Terra. The abandoned capital city had been empty for weeks, its streets silent except for the hum of automated systems. Then, as the sun rose over the crystal towers, people began to appear. They looked exactly like the humans who had vanished, but something was different. Dr. Lisa Chung watched from her research ship in orbit, her instruments detecting readings that made no scientific sense. The humans below registered on her scanners, but they also showed quantum signatures that extended into dimensions her equipment could not properly measure. "They are here, but they are also somewhere else," she reported to the Galactic Council. "It is as if each human exists in multiple realities at the same time." Captain Susan Lewis stood in the town square of New Terra, addressing a crowd of returning colonists. She looked exactly as she had before the departure, but her voice carried harmonics that resonated in alien minds in ways that normal human speech never had. "We know this is difficult to understand," she said, her words somehow translating perfectly into every alien language simultaneously. "We are the same people you knew, but we have become more than we were. We exist here with you, and we also exist in the spaces between stars, watching and protecting." The Galactic Council convened an emergency session to address humanity's return. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to hear the new terms of galactic civilization. Chairman Velox opened the meeting with words that reflected everyone's mixed feelings of relief and uncertainty. "We welcome our human friends back to the galaxy," he said, "but we must understand what they have become and what this means for all of us." Ambassador Lisa Taylor represented humanity at the meeting. She sat in a chair like any other delegate, but occasionally her form flickered, revealing glimpses of the vast consciousness she had become. When she spoke, her words carried the weight of cosmic authority. "We have returned to resume our old roles," she explained. "We will continue to serve as mediators, engineers, scientists, and friends. But we also have a new responsibility. We are now the guardians who ensure this galaxy never becomes too perfect." "What does that mean?" asked Dr. Yex Tara from the Science Guild. Taylor's form shifted slightly, and for a moment the delegates could see the vast network of consciousness that connected her to transformed humans across the galaxy. "It means we will ensure that there is always growth, always change, always challenge. Perfect peace leads to stagnation, perfect order leads to death." The Treaty of Eternal Vigilance was signed 3 days later. It was unlike any agreement in galactic history, because one party to the treaty existed in dimensions the other parties could not fully comprehend. The terms were simple but profound. The galaxy species would continue to build their civilizations, pursue their goals, and cooperate with each other, but they would accept that some level of conflict and uncertainty was necessary for cosmic health. In return, humanity would protect the galaxy from external threats and internal stagnation. They would serve as the force that prevented perfect order while maintaining overall stability. Commander John Riley explained the practical implications during a broadcast to the entire galaxy. "We will still fix your technology, mediate your disputes, and help solve your problems. But we will also introduce new challenges when things become too comfortable. Sometimes we will create minor conflicts to prevent major ones," added Dr. Tony Russell. "Sometimes we will introduce new technologies that disrupt existing systems. Sometimes we will ask difficult questions that force you to grow." The changes became apparent almost immediately. The failing Nexus gates were not just repaired, they were upgraded with new features that no alien species had requested. The gates could now transport matter across dimensions, opening up entirely new fields of exploration and trade. Engineer Paul Davis worked on the gate upgrades, his consciousness existing simultaneously in normal space and in the quantum dimensions, where the gate mechanics operated. "The old gates were too stable," he explained to the alien engineers who watched in amazement. "Stability is the enemy of progress. The early warning system was rebuilt with capabilities that went far beyond its original design. Captain Steve Morgan commanded sensors that could detect threats not just in normal space, but in the parallel dimensions where future dangers might originate. We can now see problems before they become problems," he told Admiral Trancos. "But we will only warn you about the threats that would truly harm you. Some challenges you must face yourselves, because that is how you grow." The economic systems were restructured to include what humans called constructive uncertainty. Markets were no longer perfectly stable, but the instability followed patterns that promoted growth rather than chaos. Human banker Jennifer Hayes worked with alien economists to create new financial instruments. "Perfect economic stability is death," she explained. "Markets need to breathe, to flex, to change. We provide the controlled uncertainty that keeps your economies alive." Not everyone was happy with the changes. Some species preferred the old ways, the comfortable predictability they had known. The Crystalline Collective filed formal protests against the new economic volatility. "We achieved perfect mathematical harmony in our trade systems," complained Ambassador Crickstall. "Now the humans introduce variables that disrupt our calculations." "That is exactly the point," replied human negotiator Dr. Amy Parker. "Perfect. Harmony is beautiful, but it is also static. Your civilization needs to grow, and growth requires change." The protests continued for months, but gradually most species began to see the benefits of the new system. Innovation increased. New technologies appeared. Species that had been stagnant for centuries began developing new ideas and exploring new possibilities. Dr. Carol Hayes established research stations throughout the galaxy to monitor cosmic health. These stations existed partially in normal space and partially in higher dimensions, allowing them to detect the first signs of civilizational stagnation. "We measure not just technological progress but psychological growth, cultural evolution, and spiritual development," she explained. "When a society stops growing in any of these areas, we intervene." The interventions were usually subtle. A human trader might introduce a new idea to a stagnant colony. A human scientist might ask a question that sparked new research. A human diplomat might create a minor dispute that forced species to reconsider their positions. But sometimes the interventions were more dramatic. When the Mineral Consortium achieved perfect efficiency in their mining operations, human engineers introduced new technologies that required them to completely restructure their society. "It was disrupting for a while," admitted consortium leader Vexmore. "But we discovered capabilities we never knew we had. We are stronger now than we were before." The transformation was not limited to economics and technology. Human artists, writers, and philosophers began creating works that expanded alien minds in new directions. These creations existed partially in normal reality and partially in the dimensions where human consciousness now resided. Poet Sarah Kim wrote verses that could only be fully understood by minds that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. When aliens read her work, they experienced brief glimpses of the vast spaces where transformed humans lived. Her poetry teaches us to think beyond our limitations, said Dr. Kethmar after reading Kim's latest collection. It hurts our minds in beautiful ways. The military aspects of the new arrangement became clear when the first external threat appeared. Pirates from the Dark Nebula attempted to raid the outer colonies, expecting the old defense systems that they had learned to evade. Instead, they encountered Admiral Gary Mitchell's transformed fleet. The human ships could phase between dimensions, appearing and disappearing at will. The pirates found themselves fighting enemies that existed in spaces their weapons could not reach. "Surrender, and you will be treated fairly according to galactic law," Mitchell broadcast to the pirates. "Continue fighting, and you will face forces that exist beyond your understanding." The pirates surrendered within minutes. Word spread quickly through the criminal networks that the galaxy's new human guardians were not to be tested. But the humans' greatest challenge came not from external threats or alien resistance, but from within their own transformed nature. Existing in multiple dimensions while maintaining connection to normal reality required constant effort and balance. Some humans became too detached from physical existence, losing touch with the emotions and experiences that had made them human. Others became too involved in their guardian duties, forgetting to maintain their connections to the alien friends they were protecting. Commander Lisa Taylor established the Humanity Preservation Project to address these problems. "We must remain human in our hearts even as we transcend human limitations in our capabilities," she declared. Regular gatherings were held where transformed humans could share their experiences and remind each other of their origins. They told stories of their pre-transformation lives, shared memories of alien friendships, and discussed the emotional challenges of their new existence. "We are guardians, but we are also still people," said Dr. Ben Torres during one such gathering. "We must never become so focused on our cosmic duties that we forget why those duties matter."